Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Private Lenders podcast today. This is Chris and Jason. Podcast, as always, sponsored by our lending company, hardmoneybankers.com, and our mastermind group for private and hard money lenders, hardmoneymastermind.com. Go check it out, get a free account, join the conversation, see what you think, and let us know. Okay, so there's one of the great things about the mastermind group is that it has a fully built-in, in essence, like a social networking sort of platform. So people are posting questions, other people are giving answers, everyone has profiles and stuff like that. So it's turned into some cool conversations, an opportunity for us to help out the members, answer some questions about whatever it might be. It could be about marketing, underwriting, capital raising. Today is going to be related to investor relations. In essence, a part of capital raising. So oftentimes we do spend more time, depending on where people are in their lending business and what they need. I find that we spend more time on the identifying investors, like the initial stuff, the raise, right? Like who we're looking for, how we pitch to them, all that kind of stuff. And this deals with the other end, kind of the nuts and bolts of how you work with investors, putting their money into your deals and all that stuff there. So we're going to give you a lot of shortcuts with this conversation.
Yeah, agreed. And we had a conversation kind of going with a few really interesting questions that made sense that we're going to share with you right here. And it was just easier to just do a full podcast on it than kind of type back and forth. So why don't we start off by the steps that we go through from loan funding all the way to assigning a loan to a capital investor. That's probably a good place to start.
Okay. So there's a couple different ways this could go. Like I'm always watching and have since the beginning, 12, 13 years ago, I'm always watching the pipeline that we have in an Excel spreadsheet with a whole bunch of data of the deals that are coming up and getting ready to close soon. As they get close, it could happen one of two ways. Like some of our capital investors are savvy real estate and finance people. They underwrite every deal and they want to review stuff before funding. And that is totally fine. That is half the people, maybe less than that. And then you have other people who are more passive, who they don't really care to underwrite our underwrite. They aren't, active in real estate. They don't know investment deals. In essence, they wouldn't 100% know what they were looking at. So for that reason, they choose not to underwrite deal to deal. So anyway, let's say it's somebody who does want to see every deal prior to funding, which again is totally fine and should be normal when you're first starting out with capital investors. Everybody should approve every deal until they've been through a few of them. I'll send the information, in essence, like what we call the loan summary form, and it's a snapshot of the deal. Here's the loan amount, here's the ARV, credit score, cash to close, like the basic kind of stuff, the city and state where it's located, just all on one thing. And the investor will get back to me and say, okay, this looks like a good deal. When the full file's together, let me know. And at that time, I'll send them a link with our full underwriting file. It has everything there: the valuation, the borrower's financial information, scope of work, property insurance, anything that there's only one file. It's not like we keep one for investors and then one internal. There's only one. Everybody sees the same stuff. If they're a newer investor with you, you're going to review the things in the file with them. After that, people are used to what goes in a file and they can just do it on their own. But at first, you review it with them and they're like, okay, sounds good. They send over the money the day before closing to you, not to the title company, because you want to be able to control the timing of that transaction. You fund to the title company when you have everything you need from them, and then you immediately assign. And so we use, again, like the Google Docs and stuff that we've built out custom to our process. We do an assignment document, which assigns the note and the deed of trust and the other loan documents from Hard Money Bankers LLC to their name, right? And then we take the original, sign it, notarize it in our office, mail it off to our attorney's office, who holds it. Doesn't get recorded. And I'm not going to go too deep into the purpose of that, but that could be a podcast of its own. But our attorney holds the original. Everyone gets a copy of the assignment, and that's pretty much the answer. We're closing and assigning simultaneously.
Yeah, and just like kind of a bank would do when they sell off their loan immediately, or a mortgage broker would do that's getting table funded. It's the same situation. We close the loan under Hard Money Bankers. We immediately assign it. Let's say it's a $100,000 loan. We take the $100,000. We wire it to the title company. We immediately assign the $100,000 to Joe Schmo IRA, Joe Schmo LLC, whatever the lender's name is. And for the $100,000 that they put into that deal, now they have we're assigning them our complete loan package, the deed of trust or the mortgage, the note, everything, the insurance on the property, the entire package. And we do that through an assignment and an allonge that, our law firm created for us. And they have, Chris signs it over to them, and they have the original through our attorney's office. And they could record it if they wanted to. There's no real purpose for them to record it, because then again, they might as well just do that on the front end if they're going to record and put it in public records. What we've done other videos related to why we don't put those on records, because obviously if they're in public records, it defeats the purpose. Other people will see who the lender is, but more importantly, every time there's a foreclosure, a lawsuit, a bankruptcy filing, or something with the borrower, they could get dragged out in court. So we've talked about that and other stuff. So that's in essence the process. It's after you kind of get that down and understand that concept, it's pretty easy, right? Because it's the same rinse and repeat on each deal over and over and over. And then we retain a broker and servicing agreement that our law firm put up that we have in place, which says, okay, well, we're lending out at 13%. You're buying this note at 10%, and then we get 3% to service it. In essence, that's kind of how it's set up. Some other questions related to this, and I think these answers are going to be a little bit more simple than one might think, but I'm reading these off. How do you determine how many investors per loan? Does investor capital stay with you all the time, even when it's not deployed? Let's start with those two first.
Yeah, let's do those. Okay, so how do you determine how many investors per loan? There's a couple different answers to that. Like, one is going to be based on what you have available to you, and also based on the investor's preferences. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. Some investors might say, I don't know, I have $250K that I want to put into your deals, but I don't want to put it all into one. They might say, I'd feel more comfortable if that was split up into, $50,000 chunks or $100,000 chunks, and you have to take that into account. Now, I wouldn't let investors totally determine, kind of a gray area in terms of what your system is and how they get into your deals, and also their preferences too. So if you have some people who do have preferences, and there's people on the other side, some people don't want to be in loans with other people. There's one guy who's been with us forever, and he doesn't prefer to be in loans with other people. There's not any real reason behind that, just his comfort level. And he wants to do maybe $150,000 to $400,000 loans with him only. And that's totally doable. We can totally do that. And then sometimes, like I was saying, it's just based on what you have available. Like maybe you have $150,000 loan coming up, and based on how many chunks you have, you might end up with a few investors in the loan. You really wouldn't go more than like 4 or maybe 5. Just becomes a little bit too cumbersome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in our world, like a common is 1, 2, 3, or 4. Any of those can happen, and they're all super common.
And we have a group it's a group of like 4 investors, and they have a good amount of money. And instead of each of them taking every fourth deal, they all put up 25% of each deal, because that's what they want to do. And it's just easy. They're all involved with the same exposure of each. I mean, the simple answer is however, many you need or you want. I mean, the easiest way to do it is 1. Not that it's much harder to assign it to 2 people and potentially have follow-up calls and conversations with 2 people instead of 1 person, but like, whatever you need. I mean, this is when you're starting out, chances are it'll just be 1 per loan, maybe 2. And I'll tell you why. Because someone's going to be like, okay, let me know when you have a loan around $100,000 or $200,000, and you give a $150,000 loan and they do it. And until that deal performs and matures, chances are they might not be investing in their next deal yet. So it takes time before they start the ramp up process, after they see that everything's performing. So it's just going to round off. But what ends up happening in the future is someone has $200,000 available. You have a $150,000 loan, so you put them in there. Then they have $50,000 in the sidelines that you got to deploy, and then you got to team that up with other capital. So I wouldn't overthink it. I would just, some people call it like the Tetris model. You're just kind of piecing deals together, piecing capital with deals, but there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, it's just whatever you could work, whatever you can do to make your deals work and make the investments work for your co-lenders. So it's it is a bit like Tetris. It is a moving target. There's always deals closing. There's always deals paying off. And that investor relations part of it is just a part of the business, just a daily business.
Exactly. So does investor capital stay with you all the time, even when it's not deployed? It depends on who it is. The active investors sometimes want their money, their funds back. The passive ones sometimes want it. One of Chris's jobs that we have to be diligent about is keeping money deployed. Right? You don't want to have too much money that's on the sidelines and then you can't deploy it. We've run into that problem in the past, and we've sent sums of money back. So and in our world, we have a deal that closes every day and a deal that gets paid off every day, right? So we're constantly moving money in and out. So to us, it doesn't matter. I mean, the active investors, they want it back sometimes just because they kind of want a paper trail of it, either so they don't have to put a journal entry in QuickBooks, just so there's an incoming transaction, they close out that asset, and then they open up a new one and they wire right back. There's lots of times where a deal will close today and they're putting money into it. They got paid off today and then money's going back out today, that they'll get a wire back and wire right back to us, just so they have a paper trail. So however your investor is comfortable with it is probably the best way.
Yeah, it really comes down to the active versus passive thing. Like, some of these guys are professional investors investing through their business entity they use for this kind of stuff, and they'll take the money in between loans, and that is totally fine. And then and they have no problem wiring from their own desktop. They're set up for all of this. Whereas your more passive people that are typically investing through their personal name or maybe even an IRA. Well, the IRA is its own case, but a lot of the passive people investing in their personal name or even a business entity, they don't want to take the funds back. They're not set up to do all these transactions. They have to go to the bank to send a wire. These are all factors. So honestly, short answer is it just depends on your investor and their preference. We don't have a firm opinion either way.
Yeah, that's a good point. What percent of the year is money deployed for your typical capital investors?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to answer too, because sometimes there will be a bit of downtime in our escrow account in between deals, or maybe back in their account, or maybe we're just heavy on cash and I'm like, hey, to a couple people, like we're doing next week, actually have a bunch of cash around. We're going to send a few people back, 100 here, 200 there. I don't want it to sit in our account if it's not earning interest. And they don't either. So that's also a moving target. It's hard to give an easy answer.
You know what though? I was thinking about our position and then other people's position. If you're starting out, I think it's almost deployed 100% of the time, because when we were starting out, we were waiting on capital to come back to fund another loan, right? So that's actually, and then we were proactive. Now it's keep the money out, stay out. We don't, keep performing. But at the beginning, early on, we used to be like, oh, we got a payoff statement. Great. We're going to get $200,000 back. What are we going to put it into? So I would say that in general, you're going to keep your investors' capital up for the most part, regularly, but I wouldn't offer them any sort of interest when it's not deployed. It stays in a non-interest bearing escrow account. If they want us to hold it in between, that's fine. But I mean, you got to be diligent to try to get it redeployed as much as you can, but it might not always happen like that.
Yeah, that really is the best answer. Is it on all these things? It's just a daily part of the job of this business is keep an eye on your money, communicating with your investors, funding deals getting paid off. There's it's transactional work, and it's just part of it. It's also high level work as we see it, just like underwriting is, for example. This stuff should be done by the owner, in our opinion. By the owner who's responsible for it, who's the top level professional underwriter or investor relations person in our organization. And I don't mind doing it. I've done it since the beginning. I have a call in 10 minutes with one of our larger capital investors, because we do a monthly call just to update on the portfolio. And again, that's also a preference thing based on some people want to know what's going on, want to hear from you, want to have conversations about their portfolio, and some don't even want to think about it or talk about it. And again, that's just kind of a investment preference thing, and it's part of the job. And
as you perform with your capital investors in your company over and over and over, it gets easier. Someone might want to be more involved on the first deal and have a little bit more active, which they should. It's a lot of money that they're deploying. So if it's treated the right way, then you build really, really good relationships. So I will hope everybody enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Make sure to hop on to hardmoneymastermind.com, hardmoneymastermind.com. It's a really, really, really cool social media platform. Really, it's like not even the number one. It's the only community for private lenders and hard money lenders from all over the country to chat and network and talk and see what other people are doing. I've been really impressed that there's a lot of really good private lenders and hard money lenders. You know, some are one-off investors or private capital that have, you know, a few bucks of their own that they're just lending out individually. And there's also bigger hard money companies that, you know, have raised lots of capital over the years and have treated it more like a business. So no matter what side of the private lending or hard money lending side, you know, check it out. hardmoneymastermind.com, completely free. Make sure you say hello. And